Let's go ahead and get started with our TIM at 10 today. We're going to be going over the basic care requirements for pre-kindergarten age children and school age children, the caregivers, and what those responsibilities are as outlined in the child care minimum standards. Always great to know exactly what those expectations are with the state. I love these chapters. They've always been some of my favorite chapters to really help us with success. They're very well written, good stuff that we're going to be going over today. Before we get started, just a couple of quick reminders about our TIM at 10s and all of our videos that are located on our website. If you have any questions about the material that we'll be talking about today, there's a few different ways that you can get a hold of us. Those of you that are live, you can type in a question or comment over in the comment screen. Those of you that might be watching the recording of this, in the upper right-hand corner of our website, timthetrainer.com, you can send us a direct message, or you can always call us or email us any questions that you have, or if you need more information beyond the scope of the training material, and we are here to respond to you in a timely manner to set you up for success. This particular topic today has been submitted and approved by the Texas Early Childhood Professional Development System, otherwise known as TechPEDS. So when you do your assessment at the end of this video, make sure you have your personal TechPEDS ID number entered on your Tim the Trainer portal. That way your training certificate will be automatically uploaded into your personal TechPEDS account. That's always really nice and helpful for the schools. Last little reminder is, per the child care minimum standards, trainings must be completed in a reasonable amount of time. So basically, you should not complete more clock hours of training in a single day than the total number of hours that you worked in that day. You definitely cannot complete more clock hours of training than there are waking hours in a single day. Just want to make sure that you're in compliance with child care regulations, Texas Rising Star, Texas Workforce Commission, all of those regulatory agencies that we must satisfy daily. All right, so our objectives for today's training is, again, have that comprehensive understanding of the child care minimum standard expectations, and we're going to talk about some different tips on how to comply with these rules. We're really going to talk about developmentally appropriate practices, and that's kind of why I've divided up these basic care requirements into infant toddlers in one webinar, pre-kindergarten and school age in a separate webinar, so that we can really focus on age-appropriate activities and developmentally appropriate practices for the children that you're serving in your care. And then, of course, we always like to touch on understanding health practices and safety guidelines, once again, as outlined by Health and Human Services. So that is our objectives for today's training. All right, so let's talk about terms and definitions as outlined in the child care minimum standards. So when we talk about a pre-kindergarten age child, a pre-kindergarten age child would be a child that is 3 or 4 years of age before the current beginning of the current school year. So when you're looking at the center, the children in your center, your 3-year-olds are considered pre-kindergarten age children as far as licensing is concerned. There's a lot of people that kind of get mixed up on that one when we talk about the definition of an infant, the definition of a toddler, and then it goes right on into the definition of pre-kindergarten age child. Sometimes people will go, oh wait, are they missing an age group? No, they're not missing an age group. That definition of a toddler, is 18 to 35, 36 months, and then your pre-kindergarten is your 3-year-olds and your 4-year-olds. Now, a school-age child is a child that is 5 years of age and older that is enrolled in or has completed kindergarten. So once they start public or private charter school, and they are attending that location, that's a school-age child 5 years and up. If some of you have 3 and 4-year-old children that are attending a public school, but then coming to your facility either before or after, that would still be a pre-kindergarten age child. All right. So again, that school-age child is a child 5 years of age and older. All right. So again, we've had some confusion with, the definitions of a pre-kindergarten age child that is also attending a public or private school. That does not put them into the school-age child category because they're not 5 years of age. All right. So want to make sure that we've got that all clarified as well. All right, so start off, we're going to talk about the basic care requirements for pre-kindergarten age children. All right, so this must include routines such as diapering or toileting, eating, napping or resting, indoor activity time, and outdoor activity time. And we're going to dig a little bit deeper into those active play times in just a couple of slides right here. The other thing I want to point out, not to go down a deep rabbit hole right here, but even for the pre-kindergarten age child, it talks about routines such as diapering or toileting, all right? And so there may be some situations where you have a child that is 3 years of age, but not yet potty trained. And under the Americans with Disability Act, you can never withhold a child's opportunity to learn due to a special care need or a disability, and that could include diapering. All right. So sometimes I see programs that say, we don't move children up into a 3-year-old classroom until they're potty trained. You got to be really careful with that because that could be an ADA violation if the child not being potty trained is a result of a special care need or a disability. Basically, the way the Americans with Disability Act looks at this is that you could have a 3 or 4-year-old child that is not yet potty trained, but cleaning that child up is considered a reasonable accommodation to that need. All right. And so most centers are able to accommodate that and assisting that child, if they're in a pull-up or if they have an accident. Sometimes I have people say, well, we don't have diaper changing tables in a 3-year-old classroom. Okay, you're not required to have a diaper changing table when changing a diaper, as long as the diaper is changed in a sanitary and respectful manner. Okay, so just want to protect y'all on that one. And I'm bringing this up, and I wouldn't normally bring this up in a basic care requirements training, but we are starting to see more and more children that are delayed with potty training. So the number of 3-year-olds that we are seeing that are not potty trained, I don't think I've ever seen this many in my entire career. It's just kind of a sign of the times that we're in right now. All right. Now I've got a question over here. How would that work with ratio? All right. If you have 18 months to 3 years of age in the same group, I'm going to refer you to the chapter on ratio and group sizes for that particular question. But how you would determine the ratio if you have a mixed age group is you would do the average age of the group. All right. And make sure that those ratios are maintained. A reasonable accommodation, as outlined in the Americans with Disability Act, is that another adult could step into that classroom for the brief amount of time that is needed to possibly assist a child who has had an accident or potty training. Okay, so there you go. Make sure that we're giving individual attention to each pre-kindergarten age child. I'm going to refer you to our training that we have on engagement techniques in the classroom. Also, our training that we have on understanding attachment. That individual attention given to each child, that joint attention is so incredibly important. All right, that one-on-one time, that eye contact that we make with the child every single day is critical for their social and emotional development. So make sure that you're coming up with a good system that you are ensuring that you're giving that individual attention to each individual child every single day. And interactions that encourage children to communicate and express feelings in an appropriate way. All right? And feelings are okay. It's okay to have feelings. And we want to encourage, practice, and lend communication skills to the children. All right? And again, in a positive and encouraging way. Even pre-kindergarten age children are still learning and sometimes struggling with those communication skills, right? And we don't want to belittle them or shame them. It is our job as the educator to lend those communication skills to the children. When we talk about space requirements for pre-kindergarten age children, all right, we want space for furniture and activities without limiting the children's movement. So in other words, we want to have plenty of room in that classroom for children to learn and explore. We don't want it too cramped up. So kind of taking a look at the furniture and equipment that you're ordering or that you're using for that classroom, is it adequate for the size and square footage of that room? All right. My philosophy has always been sometimes less is better, right? As long as you've got the appropriate things listed that we're going to go over here in just a little bit. But sometimes we got to keep it simple. All right. Now, I've also had situations where I've operated very large classrooms where we needed additional furniture so that we didn't have so much open space. So it's a balancing act. It's a balancing act for sure. Space in which children are allowed to find or create individual activities, but still permits the caregiver to easily supervise the child. So once again, when we talk about furniture and equipment and the way you arrange your furniture and equipment, all right, the children have an adequate amount of opportunities to stay engaged, but also allowing the caregiver proper supervision of the children. So this is where I always encourage you, any furniture and equipment that you order for your classrooms needs to be manufactured for commercial use and is age appropriate for the chronological age children that are in that group. You don't want furniture too big. You don't want furniture too small because they're going to climb on it, right? And I know if you are able to do this, definitely don't want anyone to get hurt. But if you are able to do this, when you're setting up your classrooms, get down on your hands and knees and crawl around so that you can see the classroom from the child's point of view. This is really going to help you when it comes to adequate supervision. You're going to be able to find the blind spots. You're going to be able to find and pinpoint some problem areas, engagement areas, these type of things. So again, if you're physically able to get down there and do that, always a really good recommendation. So when we talk about furnishings and equipment for a pre-kindergarten age child, it must include the following. This is where we start talking about interest centers or learning centers, such as dramatic play, block building, stories and books, science and nature activities, art and music activities, sensory and problem solving that are clearly defined, all right, that are organized for independent use by the children and arranged so that, again, their activities are visible to the caregiver. And I've got a new training that I'm working on, an updated training, so it'll be out later this fall, on learning environments because we have kind of adapted and amended some of the expectations that we have with learning environments. But whenever I go in to arrange a classroom, which is one of my favorite things to do, by the way, I look for that clearly defined learning center. I should be able to stand at a classroom door and say, that is the block center, that is dramatic play, that is science and nature, right? That's what we're looking for right there. So this is an art, this is a technique for sure, but practice makes perfect, all right? Age-appropriate seating, tables, nap, and rest equipment. All right. So again, making sure that you have that age-appropriate furniture for the children that are in that specific classroom. On your nap and rest equipment, making sure that when you are putting children down for nap time or rest time, that cots and mats are far enough apart that caregivers can walk and work between each individual cot or mat. All right. There is no distance listed in this book as far as how far apart must cots or mats be from each other. Nowhere in this book does it say 18 inches, 24 inches, whatever. What it says is that cots and mats must be far enough apart for caregivers to walk and work between the cot and mat. All right. So that's what we want to make sure that we're ensuring right there. And, you know, another thing that I like to mention with the arrangement of furniture and equipment, especially when it comes to cots and mats, I understand that some of you are very limited on space in your classroom. So sometimes we have to put cots and mats in different areas as long as you're able to properly supervise the children. But you don't want to confuse the environment. All right. And sometimes I will, have people put a cot or mat in a particular area of the classroom, and then it becomes confusing because is this an area of the classroom where a child can choose to go self-regulate? Or is this an area of the classroom where I take a nap, right? So we don't want to confuse the environment, so always take that into consideration right there. Make sure that you've got enough popular items available so that children are not forced to compete for them. Again, even at this age group, children are still learning to share. They're still learning to cooperate. We're encouraging that verbal communication of asking for a turn, right? And then if the other child says, no, I'm still playing with the doll, we're still working on dealing with that disappointment and upset that I didn't get my turn. And these are all skills, right, that we continuously lend, work on, and encourage even in this particular age group. Make sure that containers or low shelving is available so that items children can safely use. They can do that without direct supervision, and making sure that these are accessible to children. Sometimes I will go in a classroom and I'll see a bucket of toys or manipulatives like up on a tall shelf up here. And I'm like, hey, teacher, why is that? Why are those toys up there on top of that shelf out of the reach of children? Well, the kids, they just play with them all the time and they make a big mess. Well, that's what they're supposed to do, right? We have to teach them and we have to practice with them, the proper way of playing with the toy and the proper way of putting that toy away. But taking it, away from them and putting it on a high shelf so the kids can't get to it, you're losing that opportunity to teach and lend that skill, right? But could also be a compliance issue right here because on number 4, they're not available or accessible to the children. All right, so my favorite part about these basic care requirements is the daily activities for pre-kindergarten age children must include the following: And I like to turn this into like a scavenger hunt. So you can take this list right here and go into your classroom. Make sure that you've got all of the items that are mentioned right here or similar items that are mentioned right here. So you can kind of use this as a supply list per se to make sure that you've got everything you need. But I also like it because it helps us understand that there are particular reasons why we have certain pieces of equipment in our classroom. It's in order to stay in compliance with the minimum standards, and it's also the opportunity for learning. Okay, so number one is going to talk about opportunities for outdoor play when weather permits. So you must have 60 minutes of outdoor play each day. So 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the afternoon, whatever works best for your program. And make sure that that 60 minutes total is in there. Now your program gets to decide what is weather permitting based on your climate, based on the amount of shade that you have. There are several different factors that can be used to determine weather permitting. But make sure that that's happening. Those kids need to go outside, get the vitamin from the sun, run, use all those right brain activities, really important for their development. Opportunities for thinking skills and sensory development. So some examples right here would be sand and water play, blocks, framed puzzles with up to 30 pieces, a variety of large stringing beads, and simple board games for this particular age group. Number 3 is opportunities for small muscle development. So that's your fingers, your toes, your eyeballs. These are your small muscles right here. So some age-appropriate activities would be large non-toxic crayons, markers, paint, watercolors, various size paint brushes, adjustable easels, collage material, chalkboard and chalk, clay or dough with tools, workbench and accessories, rounded-ended scissors that are age-appropriate for pre-kindergarten age children, glue and paste, different types of music and videos, if videos are allowed in your program. Make sure you refer to screen time expectations. No more than 1 hour of screen time can be used for pre-kindergarten age children. Rhythm instruments and finger plays. So lots of opportunities for small muscle development, which is great because remember, these children are emerging riders and they're building the muscles in their hands and their fingers to get ready for riding. So we want to really focus on that small muscle development. Number 4 is opportunities for large muscle development, including small wagons that they can pull, lightweight balls of all sizes, small wheelbarrows that they can push, tricycles, push toys, swings, slides, climbing equipment, balance beam, hanging bars, and other outdoor material, again, to promote the development of large muscles, your arms, your legs, your torso, right? These are all of your large muscles. I would like to refer you to my training on our website, timthetrainer.com, on physical activities in early education programs, and we really kind of dig into the small and large muscle development for each of the different age groups. Now, number 5 is going to talk about opportunities for moderate to vigorous active play, both indoors and outdoors. Okay, so some examples of age-appropriate equipment or activities include active games such as tag or hot potato, dancing, creative music, a creative movement to music, singing, simple games, and dramatic or imaginary play that encourages running, stretching, climbing, and marching. Now, for pre-kindergarten age children, they must have 90 minutes of moderate to vigorous active play each day, both indoors and outdoors. So if you go back to our previous slide, you get 60 minutes of active play outdoors, but they're required to have 90 minutes total of moderate to vigorous active play. That means you're going to have to add an additional 30 minutes of active play indoors each day. So they get the 60 outside, 30 inside for a total of 90 minutes, and that's going to meet the expectation. Make sure that you're adding that additional 30 minutes inside. Maybe 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon, where you're doing some singing and dancing or yoga or Pilates or something like that. But a lot of people are missing this one, and it's starting to become one of the top 10 deficiencies in the book, that the children are not getting their total 90 minutes of moderate to vigorous active play. The other thing with moderate to vigorous active play, if they are unable to go outside due to the weather, so if it's too hot, it's too cold, it's raining, you have got to ensure that they are still getting 90 minutes of active play indoors. All right? So if you're supposed to go outside from 10 to 10:30, but it's raining outside, you can't just come into the classroom and have free play or open-ended play or whatever. You need to be supplementing some type of active play during that time period so that you stay in compliance. All right? Opportunities for language development. So we got our flannel boards, puppets, a variety of storybooks, writing materials, stories on tape. We like that. Opportunities for social and emotional development. So dress-up clothing and accessories, mirrors, dolls, simple props and different themes, puppets, transportation toys, play animals, and table games. And y'all, number 7, the opportunities for social and emotional development. One of the most important things that we should be focused on in our early education setting. It's helping the children practice the skills needed when the world doesn't go their way. That ability to self-regulate whenever they get triggered. And we're going to practice. All right? These skills right here. Number 8 is opportunities to develop self-help skills. So we're going to encourage toileting, hand washing, returning equipment to storage areas or containers, and serving and self-feeding. And even with pre-kindergarten age children, we need to encourage and practice. All right? I can't stress that enough, because I see a lot of teachers that make the assumption that by the age of 3 and 4, the children should have mastered, self-help skills. And a lot of them haven't. We still have to encourage and practice that. Let's move on now to the basic care requirements for school-age children. For those of you that do have after-school programs. And the reason why I've combined these two, because I understand that some of you may not have after-school programs or summer camp, but I still think it's important for pre-kindergarten teachers to understand the expectations of a school-age child, because this kind of helps you know what to shoot for, right? As you're planning and implementing activities in that pre-kindergarten age classroom, kind of knowing what the next step is right here. We still want to stick to developmentally appropriate practices, all right? But just kind of knowing what is the next step is going to be important, and recognizing that a lot of it is very similar, all right? So kind of keeping that in mind. Now, look at the very first thing listed under the basic care requirements for a school-age child. individual attention from and conversations with adults. Y'all, I love this one right here. You know, in our after school programs, the most important thing that the children need is just someone to look up to. They need a role model. They need a safe, stress-free environment, and they just need someone to talk to. You know, the way I've always looked at after-school programs, you know, during the day, they have a teacher at school. At night and on the weekends, they have a parent or guardian. When they're with us, they need role models. And anytime I staff an after-school program, that's what I'm looking for. They're role models to the children. And I love it that individual attention from and conversations with adults is the very first thing listed right here. Age-appropriate conversations with adults. Physical care routines appropriate for each child's developmental needs. Flexible programming according to the ages, interests, and abilities of the children. And again, flexible programming. Again, these kids have been in a structured environment, a very stressful, structured environment all day long. When they get to your after-school program, again, needs to be stress-free, flexible, relaxing. That's what we're going for right here. And then make sure that your caregiver is aware of the arrival and departure of each child, including dismissing children who may ride a bus or walk home. And I know that doesn't happen very often in our after-school programs, but it could. The physical space requirements for school-age children, we want to include space to set up interest centers, focused play areas, such again as arts and crafts, music and movement, blocks and construction, drama and theater, they love that, math and reasoning activities, science and nature, language and reading activities such as books, story tapes, language games, stories read or told on a weekly basis, and cultural awareness that are organized for independent use by the children and arranged so that the caregivers can properly supervise the kids. Make sure that your space, again, can be have got that adequate supervision. And then number 3, I actually highlighted in red, space for quiet time to do homework. And you're going to see this in 2 different areas right here. We are required to provide space and time for children to do their homework. However, I would encourage you to put this in your parent handbook that we're going to provide space and time, but we're not responsible for the outcome. All right? It is still the parent's responsibility to check their child's homework. So sometimes we've got to be really careful with that one. I would be very careful kind of taking on that responsibility of tutoring or, making that promise that you can't keep to a parent when it comes to supporting a child with their homework. Where we talk about furnishing and equipment. So again, age-appropriate seating, tables, desk to meet children's needs. So again, that workspace to do their homework, tabletop activities, age-appropriate nap or rest equipment, especially if you're having the kids all day long. And again, the containers or shelving that is available so that the children have access to the supplies that you're providing for them. The activities that you must provide for school-age children, once again, that's study time for those children who choose to work on homework assignments. Now, when we talked about pre-kindergarten age children, I mentioned screen time, and screen time is limited to 1 hour per day per child. But if a child is using a tablet or a screen to complete homework or study, that is not considered screen time. So just clarification on that. I can refer you to terms and definitions for screen time for that clarification. Opportunities for outdoor play when weather permits. Opportunities for thinking skills and sensory development. So some examples of age-appropriate equipment or activities would be sand and water play, construction material and blocks, puzzles with 50 or more pieces now, pattern making materials such as wood, paper, plastic, beads, ceramic tiles, cloth, cardboard, games that contain rules and require some skill or strategy. They're hitting that what's called the sports related movement phase at this point, where they can handle those skill and strategy games. Specific skill developmental materials such as rulers, tape measures, telescopes, weather observation equipment, models of the solar system, microscopes, books, magazines, all of this super fun stuff for these kids. Opportunities for small muscle development. So again, those fingers, toes, eyeballs. So that would include art and craft material such as paints, markers, colored pencils, crayons, clay, weaving, braiding material, music and musical instruments of all types, and puzzles or interlocking building blocks. These kids like long-term projects, and I encourage y'all to allow those long-term projects and space for the children to be able to store long-term projects that they can come back to day after day. Large muscle development, so arms, legs, torso. So this would be balls and sports equipment, kickballs, baseballs, soccer balls, basketball, skates, horseshoes, riding equipment such as kick scooters or skateboards with the elbow pads and the knee pads and a helmet, outdoor and gym equipment such as slides, swings, climbing apparatuses, upper body equipment. Opportunities for active play, again, both indoors and outdoors, all right, such as tag or Simon Says, dancing and creative movement to music and singing, simple games and dramatic or imaginary play that once again encourage running, stretching, climbing, and walking. And remember, being a caregiver, being the teacher of this age group, you need to be an active participant in all of these activities. And then last, opportunities for social and emotional development. So even for school-age children, those dolls with detailed, realistic accessories, role play material, including real equipment for library, hospital, post office, costumes, makeup and disguise materials, puppet and puppet show equipment, transportation toys such as small vehicles and models, play and art materials, nature materials, and human and animal figurines. All right? And again, just allow these kids to have fun and play and be in that stress-free environment. All right, so these basic care requirements for pre-kindergarten and school-age caregivers, not a whole lot here. So it's pretty short, it's pretty brief, but kind of to the point. But lots of opportunities for you to have a phenomenal learning environment for these two age groups. And really good material here to set you up for success with your teaching style, with your engagement, and your interactions. All right, we're going to go ahead and post the link for you to complete your assessment. Those of you that are participating live, the link should be popping up here in just a second. If you're watching the recorded video, the link will be right there on our website, timthetrainer.com. Again, if you have any questions about this material, or if you need more information beyond the scope of the training material, you can message us from our website. You can call us or you can email us, and we can respond in a timely manner and get you the information you need. All right, everyone. Thanks a lot, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.